All right, welcome to the first live Instagram to talk about the 2021 Iditarod Trail Invitational. So we're going to chat for an hour. I'm going to bring on a good friend here, but the whole point of this conversation is to talk to you about an event called the Iditarod Trail Invitational. And I just returned from that event. It was my third year doing it, and it is a 350-mile event in Alaska on the famous Iditarod Trail. Yes, everyone's heard of the dog sled race. This is a human-powered event, and so people compete in this event on foot, on skis, or on bike. And that's what I've been doing, it is on the bike. So we're going to spend this time talking about winter bike expeditions and specifically the Iditarod Trail Invitational. So I've got some questions that you guys have all sent me, and feel free to put some questions in there. And we're really just going to talk about what it's like to do a winter bike expedition, what the Iditarod Trail Invitational is like. And I'm actually going to be joined by my really good friend, mentor, legendary winter bike expedition athlete, Jay Peterberry. We're going to both be on here fielding your questions, talking about the event. And I've done the Iditarod Trail 3 times. It's my 3rd time. Jay Peterberry, legend, has done it 13 times. So Jay, if you're there, come on, join in, and we will do some Q&A on the Iditarod Trail Invitational. And we're going to cover everything from gear to equipment to how do you go to the bathroom to how to keep your hands warm to what it's like to be under the northern lights on the Iditarod Trail in the middle of winter on your bike. So I'm going to have Jay joining me. He's coming in right now. Jay in a second. All right, and once he comes in, waiting on Jay. So I've known Jay. Hi, buddy. There you are.
How are you?
Awesome. So I've known Jay Peterberry. We're both calling in from Idaho, our home state. And one of the best places to really prepare for the Iditarod Trail Invitational in Alaska is Idaho. And Jay, you've been a veteran of this race 13 times. I think you've won it 10 plus times, more than any other human in history. And you really have a cool program going here in Idaho where you actually really help train people to get to the Iditarod Trail. The race that you put on here, the Fat Pursuit, is a qualifier. And so you may be thinking, I want to go do the Iditarod Trail next year. It's serious business. It's very committing environment. There is no room for mistake. And so you have to qualify. Not everyone who wants to go gets to go. And so Jay has really helped me. One, he's been an instigator for me. Get me to do stuff I said I would never ever do, which is cold bike racing. But he's also been an educator for me and has really helped me prepare for the Iditarod Trail, the 3 that I've done it. And I even went to his winter bike expedition camp this summer or this winter to train and practice with the gear. And so welcome, Jay Peterberry. I'm really stoked to have you here.
Thanks, Reba. It's been fun watching you.
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that we've known each other 20 years from adventure racing. So Jay and I met a long time ago before I ever lived in Idaho. And it's kind of cool how our worlds have collided. So we've been friends a long time, but this winter bike thing is really new for me. So it's great that, you know, one of my good friends is actually the legend and the great resource in this kind of traveling through winter terrain on bike. And so Jay and I just got back 10 days ago. When did we finish? Less than 2 weeks ago. It's kind of over. We're still healing. I'm still resting and I'm back to riding a little bit. Not a lot, you know, I'm just starting to ramp it up again. Jay, how are you feeling after coming back from your 13th Iditarod?
Yeah. So, gosh, you know, the first week is always a blur and travel, and as you know, just unwinding. And then I think it's really important to reflect. So honestly, a little bit this past week has been some of that. It's hard to like really digest that, but I think it's important too, because it is such an overpowering event, and it's really important to like talk to your fellow competitors or people on the trail and the people in the community that have done it, because they're the ones that really only understand. So I think that time immediately after the race is super important. And we had some of that quality time afterwards. And now it's like doing some of this stuff is like so key. I love, as you know, sharing anything I can and what I know and my knowledge. And so I've been trying to do some of that over the past week. But as busy life people, and, we're quickly looking on to the next, and I'm packing up to get ready to go to the desert. But physically, I feel great. And my mind's just kind of still a little bit out there. But all this helps with that. And it's great. So certainly willing to share anything we have now.
Yeah. Say that because you go to a race like the Iditarod Trail Invitational, and literally there's only 40 people in the race, and you're spread. You don't see or talk to anyone. And Jay was traveling with a young kid, Jacob Hora, 16 years old, 15 years old, and they were traveling as partners and teammates. And I ended up with my husband as a teammate. And so you're with somebody, 24/7 for 5 days. But honestly, you're not speaking because you've got your you've got your jacket and your goggles, and you're basically, you're near each other, but you're actually not communicating with anyone for the better part of a week. And like you touched on, Jay, it's an immersion kind of into some soulful reflection. And then it does take a little bit of an entry to come back out. I mean, I don't know. I definitely find it hard sometimes to come back to internet and the real world, but I also really want to share that experience on the trail with other people, because I was thinking on the trail a lot this year of why? People always ask why. Why do you go do it? And I do it personally for myself as an exploration and a challenge, but I was also thinking this year, I do it because a lot of these people who are listening right now, they can't do it. And I want to take that back and show people what it's like to stand under the northern lights, on the top of Rainy Pass. And so I really commend you for being willing to share. So that's cool. So for those of you joining, we got an hour here. We're going to talk about the Iditarod Trail Invitational. You can put some of your questions in there. I'm seeing some questions, and I've got some for Jay too. So one of the biggest things that people always ask, we'll just start with it, and I just touched on it, is they ask why. So Jay, why do you go back to Alaska 13 times, freeze your butt off, starving, hungry, angry, cold? Why do you do it?
For all of that. But it's such a unique thing. There's only a couple of events that I repeatedly go back to like this, and Iditarod's one of them. And one of the main, and I was just thinking about this too, and just kind of, as you said, you reflect on a lot of things, and you're out there thinking about things, and how can we share, and how can we relate to others and stuff. But I was talking pretty heavily this week about the trail community that exists, because that only exists for a few weeks out of the year, call it 6 weeks, between the snowmobile race, our event and our supporters, and then the dog race. And so the trail really only opens up for this small time of year. And through all these years, I've just met so many people. And, going into the lodge and saying hello to Steve Perrin, someone who I've known for 13 years, or Cindy at the lodge, that means a lot to me. I love the challenge of going through Alaska, and I want to be in storms. And as you know, my last ITI, I just wasn't satisfied with, because it was too much of a bike race and not enough of a expedition or this challenge every time. And but that's one of the big reasons, is because of the community and the people, and you, and that family, that trail family is so neat. But it's not even just within our events. The people that live on the trail, you only see them that time of year. And I love coming across people that don't ask me why, honestly, because they know. And you've done big expeditions, they're like, why are you doing this? And you're like, if I have to explain to you, it's kind of strange, because you're not going to understand fully. But that's one of the biggest reasons. And when, this year it was super huge because I got to share it with Jacob. And that's what it's about for me. Like, I've won it enough now. I've been that competitive guy for so long. And like, that's not really that satisfying to me anymore, being this competitive guy. And like, I like to do that. That's a style that I embrace, is going fast, efficient, and being competitive. But like, there's so much more to it, and it just means so much. And it was very refreshing this year. And I learned a lot about myself, my own mind, and why I go back. And like, now 2 weeks later, I could be like, I'm going back next year. And that feels really good because they haven't always finished like that. So that's why.
I'm excited to go back next year, and I'm not sure yet, but I want to ask you, like, I felt the same thing with this trail. I mean, I've ridden a lot of trails and felt connected to a lot of ride community, but there is something different about the Iditarod trail that, like you said, is this umbilical cord for the people who spend time there. Like, why is this trail so special? And why can you like look in the eyes of someone, whether it's a dog sled racer, a musher, a skier, you don't even need to know that person. You can look at them and there's this common thing that is so deep. Like, what is it about this trail?
Yeah, it gets under your skin, and I told you that from the very first time. I said, "Watch out," and it's just something that gives me the chills just talking about it right now. When you feel something like that, you just know it's the right thing, and it feels really good because like we look for that feeling, and we can't experience that in regular life, and so we look to reconnect with that in a certain way, and it's a beautiful thing to find, and like, not everyone finds that in their life even. And I value that, and I recognize that as being really special.
I mean, to me, it's so remote. It's so harsh. It's so inhospitable. People can't survive there without special equipment. It's like being on the moon. We are very much a visitor, and I feel on that trail this intense connection to nature and being in a place that very few people get to see. And I feel so fortunate that I can get there under my own power, but it's a very remote, hard place to get to.
Wouldn't you say there's like some invaluable thing when you feel so vulnerable in a place, but yet feel so like you're confident that you can just like live in this environment because you know how, and you've put in that work, and the more you do that, the more comfortable you are out there. I think I remember you saying like your first one was like, you use those words, suffering and very hard and stuff, but like I think you said you experienced the trail so much different this year and are really enjoying it because you know how to do it now in a comfortable way.
Yeah, comfortable with air quotes. I mean, yeah, my driving sensation and feeling the first year was fear and terror of like, I don't want to lose fingers, I don't want to die, I don't want to be uncomfortable. And then the second 2 years with a lot more education, there's still a healthy respect to the environment, and hope that it's not going to be too cold or too snowy, but I've learned I can move in that environment, and it's such a different confidence, and this year, as you know, we both elected, we slept. We didn't go sleep in cabins that are available. And I know Jacob and then Greg and I, we made that choice basically out of one, to challenge ourselves because it was kind of like, wow, I wonder if we can do this. But two, out of respect for the communities and COVID safety of just, hey, if we don't need to go into buildings and cabins, like, what if we don't? And I know you and Jacob bivvied out. How was that for a decision? Like, was it a hard decision to be like, yeah, we're not going to sleep inside, we're going to sleep outside?
No, like I mean, we live in a different time. Pandemic has made events different. I mean, and if we can't accept that and go with that flow, you're just going to have a problem being in an event. So, like very early on, I said to Jacob, before even Kyle, race director, put any rules out there, I said, Jacob, I don't know what's going to happen with the event this year, but I think just because of pandemic, like we should prepare to be outside from start to finish. And so we had that in our head already. And then when it was presented to us, those other challenges, categories of self-supported and bivvy, it was like, okay, well, Jacob, what do you want to do? We make decisions together. And I asked him, and he's like, well, I think we should try self-supported. And it's like, it's a great platform because it does give you the ability to try and still say dumb yourself down, if you will, like from a self-supported thing like you guys did. We were in that same schedule, but then we're like, well, Jacob was hungry and wanted to go eat inside. And so, like, I'm not going to tell a 16-year-old kid that he can't go eat as he's growing an inch a day. And so, but he's like, but we could still bivvy, right, and sleep outside. And I was like, well, yeah, of course we can. And doing it was like really good. Like, I enjoyed that. And I used to use the checkpoints as a strategy and sleep in them and things like that. But I really enjoyed sleeping outside and appreciated that extra, just like encouragement of a challenge and the presentation of it being there. And I think it's awesome. And it wasn't so hard, but it does make you think different. And I think that's the beauty of different challenges and things. You know, whenever you can think differently, I think it's great. So we found it pretty good. But how did you find being self-supported?
No, everyone listening, there were a couple different, it wasn't really a different category. Everyone still scored the same, whenever you cross the finish line or whatever, that's your ranking. But Kyle, the race director, he presented some challenges for people that I thought were really cool. And for the first time ever, he presented a self-support category. And what that meant is you wouldn't go into any of the checkpoint lodges or huts or shelters or tents, and you wouldn't get any of the food that's available along the trail that's for sale, or supplied by the race, or water. And so that meant self-support meant you're sleeping outside, you're not going into the buildings, and you're also melting snow for all your own water and carrying your own food other than the food drops that everybody had. And so we all started out, all of Team Idaho started out self-support category. But the nice thing that Kyle put too is that you could step down in the middle of the race if you needed to go inside or something had to happen. You're still in the race and you're still doing the Iditarod Trail Invitational. And so that's the category that Jacob and Jay ended up in, was what is one step down, which was the bivvy category, which meant you go in, get food, get water, you get warm for a minute, but you're going to sleep outside. You're not going to sleep in a bunkhouse or anything like that. And then the sort of regular style Iditarod Trail was people could choose and do whatever they want. Sleep in, sleep out, get the water, not get the water. And so, you know, it's not that anyone who completes this event is absolutely hardcore, and there's like this bond. But for me, I wanted to take on the challenge, not to prove anything to anybody else, but to myself, because as I said at the beginning of this, I'm really learning about expedition. I'm still relatively a rookie compared to someone like Jay. And so to force me to practice, and I know I'm going to sleep out. I know I'm not going to get in a warm, comfy bed for 5 days. And it's almost like if you started a race that was 50 miles and then someone changed it halfway through and it's 100 miles, you'd be like, oh, I can't do it. But if you go in with the mindset at the beginning that I'm doing a 100-mile race, and your mind is just set on that. And I had been like, I really want to try this challenge self-support thing, because if I ever want to go to Nome all the way the 1,000 miles of full Iditarod Trail, I wanted to practice. I wanted to use this as a practice with my own confidence. And it was pretty cool. My husband, Greg, he thought, he agreed to do it with me, but he thought I was going to bail at like the very first opportunity. And he's like, okay, you want to boil water? Go ahead. We're going to boil water and melt snow.
He so wanted bratwurst.
And he wanted bratwurst. There was a point in the trail at Roan where the checkpoint, they make bratwurst, and it's there every year, and everybody's like, yeah, and you're looking forward to bratwurst. And we roll in and it's snowing, and Greg was kind of cranky, and like the first thing the checkpoint says to me, they're so awesome, they're like, welcome to Rome, what a bratwurst. And I was like, no, we're self-support. And I'm just like, come on, Greg. Like, I just didn't want to smell the bratwurst. So that was a little rough night, but we got through that, and I'm really proud of how we finished and the style that we finished. And I did make Greg bratwurst for dinner as soon as we got home to Idaho, so that he could feel appeased. I
think it's important too for anyone that's out there just to know it was also the 20th year anniversary. And so for like Kyle, the race director, to pull this off in the capacity that he did and introducing these couple of new things, I just thought it was a really neat thing, you know, like, let's face it, really hard time to put on an event, and especially a commemorative year like that. And gosh, and like what was really crazy too was like, I felt like so safe on the trail, even around the competitors, because I knew everyone's been like jabbed in the nose like 3 times before we even got on course. So it was like kind of like this weird time of like, you like felt okay to be around a fellow competitor because COVID safe.
And you
Um,
bubble, yeah. I mean, when we went, it was like 3 tests before we got there. Once you're in the bubble, you're in the bubble. You don't leave the bubble. And so yeah, I felt safe on the trail too. And I thought it was I really have to commend Kyle and his staff for being able to pull off a safe event because I've been really conservative and so is my husband. And the only reason we went is because he had those really strict protocol. And I think as people open up, we all want to get out there. We all want to adventure, but like we've made it this far. Like be safe, people, get your vaccine, and make your choices carefully because those adventures are waiting for you. And I know Jay chose really, really carefully. We actually talked about it. Like, what do you think? Are you going? And it was a conscious decision. And I don't want to harp on that too long, but I just want everyone to know that they did a really good job of putting
yep,
on the event.
yep, for sure.
So I have some questions here. People are asking me, and these are just some nitty gritty that you can rattle off super fast. All right. So liquid fuel or fuel canisters in this environment?
Absolutely, liquid fuel.
Why? I know the answer, but
Yeah, it's 100% guaranteed in any temperature.
cool.
Fuel canisters will go bad in colder temperatures. There's tricks to it, but we don't need to go into that. Absolutely, ITI, white gas.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something I struggled with a little bit too. Stuff, or I wanted to bring, fuel tablets or some really light things I'd use adventure racing. But honestly, especially when you're relying on snowmelt for your water, you need something that is going to work. Absolutely. And Greg and I and Jay did the same. We planned out like how many times do we think we'll have to melt snow and boil water each day for drinking water? How much open water will we get? And we calculated how many ounces of fuel do you think we'll need? And Greg and I used down to our last water fill, snow melt. We used the last of our fuel. We had the last of our food as we rolled into the finish line. And so,
How much fuel total?
yeah, we had each of us for 5 days. Greg had 40 ounces and I had 32 ounces of
Oh,
liquid,
wow.
and we used it all.
Yeah.
Also used some open water sources, but yeah, it just kind of goes to show you. And if we'd been out there another day longer, we would have had to find open water, and because
Yeah.
we'd used it all, which is you want an expedition basically with not too much left over. You don't want to carry anything extra, but we also probably cut it a little bit close. So that was a good learning. That was a good learning for me. And we were a little hungry by the end. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some more questions. So, tracks, a Garmin eTrex for navigation. I know that, right? It's one of your navigational tools. Is that right?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Uh,
Are you loading base maps in there? Are you putting a file in? How are you building your navigation for the course? Like, how does the navigation for the course work?
Yeah, so you can search around now. Internet's just an amazing piece. It wasn't like this when I first started doing it. People were very protective of the GPX track. You weren't able to get it. But yeah, there's a GPX track floating around there now, and you can be creative and make your own. Especially, at the start, there's multiple trails and there's multiple ways to go. But you can kind of like build your own GPX tracks and then upload them into your eTrex because that's another 100%. It's good no matter what the temperatures are because it's a AA disposable battery unit. So, and I do use base maps, but I cheat it and I buy the little SD Alaska card. So
Yeah.
I have topo maps, and I love doing that. I don't want to see a line on a map. I like to know my surroundings.
Yeah.
And so I see the terrain, the topo, and just, what's that mountain called? I can kind of just look and I start to educate myself. And then I also do on my phone. I use the Gaia app and I load everything into there. Usually I'll use just one track on my eTrex, but I'll put alternatives onto the Gaia on my phone, and that's my backup. And and the nice feature about the Gaia is you could download offline maps. So you can kind of just open up, if your phone's working, boom, you can see all those other alternatives. So that's like 2 methods. And then, in the early years, it would be a map in an eTrex or just something like that. And, it's really worthwhile to kind of do just have a general understanding the direction you're going. So while you're home, look at a big map of Alaska, understand kind of where you're going. Know you're going to be on a river for a while. Just even a very basic thing that you just make some small notes. Oh, river for a long time, or overland for a while. Oh, Alaska range. Oh, back up and over. And other than that, like, I mean, navigation's actually pretty easy. I know a lot of people are nervous about navigation, but our tools are amazing now. And I think the other thing just to understand is, like, once we get into the trail, call it past the confluence, like 30 some miles into the event, there's really only one trail. Mm-hmm. The Iditarod Trail. People do not snowmobile for fun and make their own lines and this and that like we do here. And there's not play snowmobiling. There's like the Iditarod Trail, think of it as a road within Alaska, and they use it as a road system to connect either lodges or villages. There's no other place to go.
Yeah, and it's a road that is traveled by snow machine or dog sled or ski or bike, or, you know, it's not a road that cars are driving on, but it is a path. I think one of the things that got confusing for people watching back home with track leaders is that at the beginning and the end of the race, there are multiple choices because you're near more of a population base, and there are multiple snow machine trails or other trails going on. And the way the navigation for this event works, you got to hit the checkpoints, but you can go wherever you want in between. And like Jay said, in some places there's only one way to get over Rainy Pass, but in other places, like at the start and the finish, there were options. And I know people at home were like, you're off the route, you're going the wrong way. And that's where you're actually navigating and making route choice based on the condition of the trail, based on if someone has traveled there before you, or if you can even see the trail. And so, I mean, I love what you said about a paper map, because I'm the same way. I felt like at home, doing your homework and studying and kind of looking at the route big picture is really important, so that then when you're on the trail and you're looking at this tiny little screen, yeah, you know, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I remember the big picture. And I think that's super important. And the people, if you get intimidated by navigation, practice it at home, because it is so empowering to be like, design something at home and be like, oh, I'm going to go there, and then put it into your Garmin and then actually execute it. And I agree with Jay, having base maps and having topo maps, that's going to give you a lot more knowledge than just a line, just a red line that you're following. Because if you get off that red line, you actually need to find your way back, or if you need to find water, or you need to find shelter, or you need to get out of where you are. Those are all things that one line without a base map isn't going to help you.
Yeah, it's huge.
So, okay, Jay, what's your favorite food on the trail on really cold events like this?
I love peanut M&Ms.
Okay, why?
Because it's a combination of the sweet and the salty. Like, and you're getting a couple of good things out of it, like the chocolate for the sugar, but then the peanuts for kind of the fat and the protein. Yeah. Eating on the trail is a big, big issue, and they don't really freeze either. Yeah. And it just seems like it's something I can always eat. And it's the same thing with like Reese's peanut butter cups, and that's when it comes to the sweet stuff. Mm-hmm. But Jacob will tell you, I actually don't eat or drink that much. I wait until I get somewhere and I can like eat a lot of food, real food at once. And that's just kind of been a progression of my own personal body and my own personal adventuring. Like I really like real food nowadays. Mm-hmm. And I just don't eat a lot of sweets anymore. And that's just a personal thing. But you do, calories are super important. You burn a lot more than you think you are going to burn. I mean, your body's working, just say twofold at least immediately just to stay warm. Say it again. Did
you lose weight on the trail?
I don't think I did.
All right. Good job.
Yeah, I don't think I did. I mean, definitely ate pretty well, and we were eating all of our freeze-dried meals and making all that stuff. And
that's why you didn't lose weight. You had the worst.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just so funny. The food thing is really hard to figure out personally, and it's a lot of experimentation. And I feel really fortunate to be where I'm at with it now. But I feel like I've gone through every single phase of it. And yeah, you just like, but you do need to pay attention. And it comes down to like when we talked about the maps, like have this basic understanding. And it's the same thing, I think, with food. Like, oh, that's my compressor. Have this basic understanding of like you need fat. Like you're burning a lot of that.
Yeah.
So substitute that. You know, when I go to Nome, I'm eating butter. Not that I'm eating it raw, but I'm putting it in my coffee, in my hot chocolate, in my oatmeal. It goes in everything because I lose a lot of weight going to Nome.
Yeah.
So, you know, just know your like basic like food groups, I guess, when it comes to like sugars and carbs, and understand how they treat your own body, because that reacts very different as well. So I really always hate to be like very particular. Oh, you should do this or you should do that. It's so personal on
Yeah.
how it does. Like, and I'm traveling with Jacob, so like, and like, it's just so funny, right? He's a 16-year-old kid, so he's just like pounding sugar and just like, he's fine and just loving it. It doesn't matter. And I can remember doing that at one point as well, but like I don't do any of that. But then he sees me sit down and I eat 3 freeze-dried meals, and he's like, I don't know how you can do all that. And
Yeah.
he's like still just like chewing on a granola bar and doesn't want to eat that meal. And it's different. It's not an easy thing.
Yeah, after my first year, my rookie year, that was the thing I had the hardest time with, was actually eating. And it was sort of, one, I didn't feel like eating, and two, just the logistics of like, you've got all this, a face mask on, you've got all this stuff, clothes, your hydration pack is underneath every single layer so that it doesn't freeze. So if you want to take one drink of water, you gotta unzip, take this down, open this up, open up to the elements, take a drink of water, put it back in, zip it up. So it's not something you can do while you're riding. You can't, it's not like summer mountain biking where you can like hands on the handlebar, take a drink, go back. You're not doing that in a winter expedition. I found you have to actually stop and eat and like do that pretty regularly. And I found that as my rookie year as a racer, like I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to unzip my jacket because I was cold. And it is very much a process of like, what's the most calories for the lightest amount of weight, because you're carrying all your food. You've got 2 5-pound food drops that you get at 2 points in the race, and you pick up your more food along the way and you stuff it into your bag and you carry it with you. But really weight is a consideration for sure. And then how much bang for your buck are you going to get? How many calories, how many carbohydrates are you going to get? Protein? You don't want to eat it. Is it going to taste good? Like it, you know, when it's -20 and it's frozen. And some of the stuff that I did year 2 and 3 is I made a lot of my own food, and I'd like make little like granola cookies or whatever, and I put them in the freezer and then let them freeze and see if I could eat them when they were frozen and see how they taste. And everything goes down bite-sized, small. And I will say one, you know, 2 of my standbys, one, and I know you do this too, Jay, is I really love making warm Roctane Summit tea flavor, and boiling water and having that in the thermos. That's one of the things you told me, is bring a thermos. It's heavy, but bring it. And I make that Roctane tea drink in there, and I'm getting calories, electrolytes, amino acids, and it tastes really good and it's warm. And that's one of my standbys. And then also bacon is really a lot of calories. I made like 3 pounds of bacon before Iditarod and like put them all in little 400-calorie bags, and but like planning out the calories for every day. So
Yeah, it seems like ITI always made like fat. It seems like I do a lot of peanut butter,
yeah,
because like just like you, I made like peanut butter bacon wraps before I left.
I saw
And
that.
I said, yeah, and it was great. So I had 2 pounds of bacon. I don't know how much peanut butter, but I just know the value of that. And like sometimes when you eat a lot of calories like that, you feel yourself like get hot all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's a trip. But it's also funny to realize, like, too, like, you know, helping Jacob through all this was like really cool for me to see, because like I don't take for granted like all my experience and the knowledge I have. But like, you know, I had to go through with him like making drop bag, you know, and so I brought him over here, give him a little seminar on how to do it and what it looks like. I show him a lot of my notes from years past and my lists and this and that, and he's looking at my stuff. He's like, oh wow, that's like a really good variety, you know. And it's just like, but I just do it so naturally now, and I could just like build that pile and glance at it and be like, yeah, I'm good for 2 days off of that pile. Like I'm not necessarily counting like I used to, but like for newbies and people, you should count and start to add that up. But I can rattle off and be like, no, I know those crackers are 200. I know that goo's 100. I know that's this and I know that's this. But like you have to go through that at first and add that stuff up.
Trying to hit per day on a cold ITI.
Yeah, it's super random because I look at the sections and the mileage, but I go anywhere from 3 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
People like a nutrition person or someone like in that area is gonna be like, dude, you need 6,000, but you can't eat 6,000 calories in a day.
You can't. No
You
way.
you can't. And I've learned through the years, and by wasting food and throwing leaving stuff behind, and this and that, and overpacking, it's like, I can get away with as little as 3, maybe lose a little bit. But I'm also just remember, as you know, it's an experience thing too. Like
Yeah.
I know I can go 12 hours without eating. Like I wasn't going to present that to Jacob when he's like, dude, I'm hungry. We don't have food. Like I'm not going to be like, yeah, dude, let's go. Like so. Yeah, but a fun subject for sure, but super personable.
I love that you were like, yeah, Jacob, we can go, we can eat whatever we want. And with Greg, I'm like, you're not eating a bratwurst. Like, and he was like sitting there in the snow, and we're under our little tarp, and there's like a warm tent with a fire and bratwurst, and we're sitting like 200 yards away, and he's super grumpy, like eating a freeze-dried meal, and we're just like,
oh, he expressed it to me. I laughed because I know you're gonna do it, and that was awesome though. I'm so proud of you guys.
No, I'm proud that we did it, but yeah, that was the bratwurst was a low point for him for sure. Awesome. So I want to get on. Somebody asked, what was the hardest part of your ITI this year?
Gosh, I had such a good year. I really did. It was so smooth and steady.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like super fun and so even keeled. I thought we nailed the weather. It was a good balance. The trail wasn't all that fast, but I think we kind of nailed the weather, honestly. I mean, we had some snow. We had that like ping pong ball day, the whiteout day, the second day, but that's all good stuff. But none of it was like overly hard. Like there wasn't like a super big crux, I would say, and neither one of us experienced that. So like in a pair or in a partner situation, like that can rub off on each other, right? But like I would say he was like in the same mindset and super even keeled and like was never overly challenged. So like it would be really hard for me to say like what was so hard about this year when it was just like I thought it was so good.
I can attest to that too, because I crossed the finish line just feeling so satisfied, and it was hard for sure. It was hard. But
Yes.
it felt so like it was such a complete good experience. And yeah, it's hard going over Rainy Pass. There's a lot of hills. There was some wind. There was some snow. We had to push our bikes for like a few hours. But I mean, I'm the same as you in that this year, I think Mother Nature was really kind. I think we all went in really prepared. The fact that you were helping coach Jacob along and bring him along, and you were teaching Fat Pursuit Camp, and you did the Fat Pursuit. I think you were prepared in kind of maybe a more complete way because you were teaching someone else. And me, same. It was year 3, and I really prepared. I really trained hard, and I think because it was 20th anniversary, because we're coming out of COVID, and it was the first event we had done in a long time, I took it really seriously with like a healthy respect. But I was also so grateful to be on the trail. Like I was so happy, and like even when we were walking for a little while on the last day, which is always a bummer to walk your post holding up to your knees. That's kind of a drag. But I'm like, hey, Greg, it's not windy. Like, like we're okay. Like we got this. This is fine. We're so lucky to be out here, and of course I would rather been riding my bike than pushing it. But like I felt this immense gratitude this year. And so like you, I would struggle to find, what was there wasn't really a low. I was bummed I got a little bit sleepy, and that was sort of unfortunate timing for us with a storm that was coming in. But I'm like, that was a choice we made. That was a safety decision. I was running into trees, falling asleep on my back. So I'm like, we had to sleep, and that was a decision you have to make on the trail. And I think when people are watching, the track leaders and all that, it's really hard to know the decisions that are happen to be made, because honestly, you and I can't think of a negative for the race this year. And Mother Nature was very, very kind this year. But it's friggin' hard, and the consequences are really high. And you take your glove off for too long and you freeze your fingers, or you crash into a tree and break your collarbone. You are in the middle of nowhere with no rescue, or you break your derailleur, or any millions of things that can happen like that. All of a sudden, you're freezing because you're not moving, and it's really high consequence. And so, even though there wasn't really a low for me, and it was such a rewarding year, it's hard to emphasize. I mean, you've done it 13 times. You know how bad it can get, and on the ground, it can change. So, like, tell us some stories of like things are going great, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, you get.
Oh gosh, yeah, and I think that's part of it too. When you have such a year that is just like so good, it's because of like you've been through so much bad, and like, yeah, I mean, it's story after story. Whether it's like we moved a half a mile an hour one year for 24 hours, and we didn't stop. We literally post hold, like we made it up the pass, and then the race director was there, and that was it. His snow machine was broke, and he was sick, and like the trail didn't go down the backside of the pass, and so we got there. We were second. I traveled with Tracy that year, but then like Jeff was there first, and he's like, he like wakes up. There's actually a cabin up there that you're not allowed to go in now, but we were in there. There wasn't a roof on it. The roof got blown off the cabin, brand new. And so Jeff leans over. He's like, "There's no trail," and I'm just like, "For real?" Like, and we post-holed a good part of the way up there. I was on a mission actually. Tracy was just like, we were with another guy, and someone was trying to stop me, and Tracy's like, "You're not going to stop him," and I was just like, it was like crazy, and I was just trying to get to a place because I know how critical it is. Like if you stop, like, well, now what are you going to do? Like eat all your food and use your fuel? Like we didn't even carry a stove then, so it's just like we didn't have a choice. But like the next day, like I look over at Jeff, and I was just like, dude, we have to go.
Yeah.
And like literally by that time, a bunch of us caught up, but like we post-holed for 24 hours straight and moved a half a mile an hour. And we were falling through like the willows. I mean, this wasn't just like on a trail pushing your bike in knee-deep snow. This was ridiculous. But we look back at that as like one of the best stories ever. Or, the time where like I'm going to like, and I might have said this the other day, maybe on social media, but like we rode in a t-shirt to McGrath, literally. T-shirt to McGrath, beautiful. Hard trail, bike race.
Weather in Alaska. What's the temperature?
I mean, it's probably going to be 30, right, with the sun out.
Yeah. Time.
But then, and then I was going to Nome that year, so race McGrath is over. Like, okay, going to Nome. Well, there's 200-mile overland section with nothing. 200 miles of nothing. Super nervous time. Well, it started snowing on me out there. It turned out it snowed 3 feet. It shut people down out there. And so, t-shirt, 3 feet of snow in less than 48 hours. It was ridiculous. And I experienced some of that. I was in the villages at that point. But then it dropped to I never seen my thermometer above 20 below for a week straight. And it was mostly at negative 40. And you want to talk about a challenging year? And I traveled with someone, but the work to do everything every single day, it just becomes this thing, and it's everything's a task. Like you said earlier, unzipping, and when it's negative 40, you don't have a lot of time to
No.
do this stuff, but you have to do it. But we got up every single day and like we rode every single day. We never took time out. Like we were still racing, and like that was a really special year to spend that kind of time and that kind of cold. And when the cabins were colder inside than it was outside, and there was no firewood because we were there before the Iditarod race was happening, and we're just like, we'd get to a cabin and be like, oh man, firewood, and like nothing there, and be like, it's negative 40 plus out, and you're like, you got to bivvy, you got to do your work, you got to make water. And it was just like, oh my gosh, that was a really hard year. But like, and when you get through those times, it's amazing. And one other time, which I'm really proud of, which was also amazing. There was a storm that was on my tail, and I was trying to make it upriver another time going to Nome, and it's a long distance up the river, Yukon River. So picture this, Yukon River, it's about a mile wide at times, flat, it's a river, white, one trail going up it. So there is like nothing around. You are on this 200 miles. Well, it was snowing on me, and it turned white out. And like I was in like this ping pong ball for like 3 days straight, and I just would not stop because I knew if I was going to stop, I was going to get shut down from the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happened to the guys that were behind me.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to just like push through, just to try to be there. And they just keep losing more time, getting buried by more snow. So it turns into like a 12, maybe I had like 6 to 12 hours on them. By the end of the race, I finished 3 to 4 days ahead of them. So it's crazy.
Hard on the trail. Do you stop and take care of yourself or do you push on? I mean, there's not a right answer. You can look back to that one and be like, I did the right thing. But yeah, those conversations in your own head of like what to do, that's not really obvious.
No, and that's like all within me. Like it's storming out, like, and my food's not here at the village because the mail never made it. Like 3 villages in a row, I never had food, and like I'm like going through all this. No one at home knows what's going on. They just see this dot, and I'm like making these crucial decisions, like literally like looking at like 2 Snicker bars and being like, can I make it 50 miles? It's snowing right now. I hope my food's there. I gotta go. This is nuts, but I'm doing it. And so to like people on track leaders don't see that and know what's going on. And like, I don't like to flaunt the things I've done and do and things like that, but I look back on that and I'm like, that was awesome. It was really good decision making. And like, I survived it. And like, then I get more confidence in that experience that gets you through that next expedition. And that's kind of what you get out of being an experienced expedition person, I guess.
I like what you said. I mean, the people keep asking why Alaska, why this cold stuff, and it is the commitment, the high level commitment. Events where in a while I've done hard stuff that is hard, and mentally it's hard to keep going, but I hadn't done anything in a long time that was really committing, where my choices on the trail could be life or death. And I don't go out there to risk my life, but that level of commitment really makes me rise to the occasion in my preparation and in my studying and like getting information from you. It's a different thing than like, oh, do I feel like riding another hour or not? Yeah, it's kind of hard. Oh, I'm going to keep going. This is a different kind of decision making when the consequence of I need to eat, but I can't take my glove off because it's minus 40. Okay, I'm going to keep going and not take my glove off. And, that level of commitment, it's not that I want to scare myself. It's that, like you said, when you make the right decisions in those environments, it's pretty powerful in your own confidence. And it's kind of a cool thing. So I want to ask you a couple questions. What's the coldest you've ever seen in Iditarod?
Yeah, so I have a thermometer. It's the coldest one I could find that goes to negative 40. Yeah. And I've been below negative 50.
Yeah. And this year I think I saw minus 20.
Yeah, I think I seen minus 15. Jacob said he thought he seen minus 20. And that and like to me that's like it's tolerable. It's good. And it didn't last for a long time, so it wasn't bad.
It's such a weird concept that we can like chat. Funny. I mean, it just friggin' blows my mind. Like even me, I'm like, it's minus 20. But what's so crazy is like if you're moving, you got the right equipment, you're eating well, you're taking care of yourself, as long as you don't have to stop in those temperatures, you're creating heat and you're creating energy, and it's kind of okay, which is such a crazy thing to say.
And it's ridiculous how little you actually wear when it's -20, right?
Yeah. Like you imagine you're going to be wearing giant puffy coat and all that, and really it's when you stop. That's the danger in this situation. You have a mechanical, you have a biomechanical, you get lost, you have something go wrong, and you have to stop. That's to me where it feels like it gets really dangerous. Or you've got to stop to boil water. You've got to stop to like do something. That's where your body temperature, especially depleted after a few days, my body temperature just goes floomp and just like plummets. So you got to like stoke the fire with calories. We were making fires on, sleeping out. Greg and he had a little saw that was an additional piece of equipment we took with us you had talked about that. And we were literally making fires so that we could set up our camp and be warm. And that was pretty cool. But all that takes time. You're racing, but you've got to take the time to take care of yourself. I think
Got to do the work.
Yeah, you got to do the work. And I know, there was definitely like people watching track leaders. They're like, God, you guys are sleeping a ton. You're sleeping like 7 hours a night. I'm like, no, we're sleeping 4 hours, but it takes an hour to like make your food, make the fire, make the camp, get bedded down. Then it takes, half hour to pack back up in the morning and eat some food. So suddenly, and then you got to melt snow and boil water. That's another 45 minutes. And suddenly it's like, yeah, we weren't sleeping 8 hours a night just on like this vacation land of,
Yeah, yeah. And Jacob and I still like before we bivvied, we would do our work, and I think it's just really important to like do that stuff and like get into the habit of it. And when I'm mentoring or teaching, like I don't want to mentor or teach the way I necessarily do things. I kind of want to do that. I want to show someone the proper way, and if they want to push themselves to do things differently or risk differently in a racing scenario, I want them leave that up to them. But every night before we went to bed, like we would make huge amounts of water, fill our thermoses, and make sure you eat. To stay warm at night in your sleeping bag, you must eat food.
Yeah.
And so I made sure we ate food, and I would be really strict on make sure you're drinking a couple of cups of hot water because you're dehydrated. So this is the time to kind of catch up a little bit before you go to bed.
I know you weren't traveling with me, you were traveling with Jacob, but I was like doing all those J things too. Because honestly, you'll move faster on the bike when you are moving if your body's taken care of. And my rookie
and
year,
you feel better.
Yeah, and you'll sleep better, cover better, you'll move faster on the trail. My rookie year, I just didn't want to stop. And I made it just out of sheer stubbornness. But second year and third year, the style is so much better because I have confidence. I'm not riding that fine line of survival.
Racer's mentality can get you in trouble out there.
Totally. Okay, so I want to get on to Jay. What's your next adventure? What are you doing next?
Oh gosh. So what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
For this year?
Yeah, what's on tap? What do you want to?
Yeah, so I hate the calendar question because I've never been able to give one. Even when sponsors ask about calendar for the year, I've always been like, dude, man, I just know I'm going to do a lot.
About right now that's on your radar.
Yeah, so preparing to go do another Divide ride. So Tour Divide. But since we can't go to...
What is that? Real quick.
Yep, so the Tour Divide is an event that has been going on for over 10 years now, and it goes from Banff to Mexico, and it's 2,800 miles, and it follows the Adventure Cycling Association route along the Continental Divide. And so I've done that 6 times already, and this is another year of pandemic, and so right now I'm trying to encourage the community because we're not allowed in Canada, so in hindsight, it would be canceled, but there's not really a race organizer because this is kind of an underground grassroots bikepacking event. And I would say it put bikepacking on the map. And so I am prepared to do that, but I'm also talking about it in a different way because of COVID and such. And I also think it's a good time to kind of resurface what that event really means, maybe pay homage to the Adventure Cycling Association for actually helping create such a route, because it's done phenomenal things in the bikepacking community, and so many people have this Tour Divide on their mind. But like, let's not cancel it. Let's just like restructure it and call it a border to border run. Do the original ACA route. Let's talk about like the people like John Stamstead that started it, why he did it. Let's try to like bring back some of that spirit, and because some of the modernization of life in general, it has like just changed some things. And I have this is really something that I hold true to me in my heart, and I would love to see it continue the way it's kind of what it was built on. And so, and even to the point of like, this year I'm kind of suggesting not to go on the res land down in New Mexico. Let's not make it easier by taking these pavement sections. Let's take the true dirt. So it's kind of a little bit of a time that I think we can kind of talk about things not the way they used to be, but yeah, the way they used to be and what it's been about. So that's something that takes place the second week in June. And then before that, I'll do Unbound XL the week before. So those are a couple things. And then, honestly, I'm like thinking about the next thing to take Jacob to. And I asked him the other day what he would like to do together. And also sensing that, well, I know he wants to start racing. And it's been super fun to me to be a part of him and watching this happen. But honestly, we're just going and riding bikes and going to these events and having a lot of fun, and just showing him what it's about. And he's now interested in kind of pushing the limits with sleep deprivation and wanting to understand how to make up time. And like, I love strategy, so like that kind of gets me excited. And so I'm not quite sure what the next event will be, but I just mentioned to him like I want it to be something cool and international. So I don't know, and we'll just kind of see what else comes about. But I mean that's close enough, a couple months away, 2,500-mile ride. I'm pretty psyched.
That's pretty awesome. And I mean, I love what you're talking about. A lot of people are finding bike packing right now, whether it's winter or summer or gravel or mountain bike or whatever it is. People are going exploring on their bikes. So that's all bike packing is you load up some stuff and you plan an adventure and you go do it. And so I love how much you inspire people to do that. And, for anyone listening who's thinking about that, I think one of the gifts of lockdown is people are exploring their own backyards, and there's so much to do in Idaho. I've been exploring some routes that I've never done in Idaho. And so for those of you listening, get a map, get on your Garmin, get on your computer and plan some stuff right from your own back door and load up your bike and go. And there's so much beauty in exploring under your own power with your bicycle, and just go riding to your grandma's house that might be 50 miles away or whatever it is, or go ride, like Jay's riding 2,500 miles. But it doesn't have to be big to start to have an adventure. And so I do want to encourage everybody, hopefully listening to this tonight is you're encouraged to go plan your own little adventure. And I know Jay and I feel strong about empowering people, one, with the motivation, but the knowledge and the information to go do it yourself. And Jay, there we go. Jay's been that inspiration for me, and hopefully this conversation is a little bit of that for you. We just got a couple more minutes, so I'll wrap by saying my next adventure, that if you want to follow along and you want to do a little more dot watching, I'm heading next week, and we'll probably be starting April 1st to an expedition in Iceland and be doing a winter crossing of the Highlands route of the interior of Iceland with Chris Burkhardt and Angus Morton. So another big winter bike packing expedition that is self-supported as well. There will be hut systems, so if we make it to the huts, we'll get inside. There's thermal pools in Iceland, but really extreme conditions. No bratwurst on the trail, unfortunately. But you can follow along with that on my website, RebeccaRusch.com, and Jay Peterberry, my legend friend, Idahoan. You can find him at jpeterberry.com as well. And he does winter bike expedition camps in the winter, next winter, and also a race called the Fat Pursuit in Idaho. So maybe that's a good place for you to start your winter bike expeditions. And thank you, Jay. I'm going to end with our two mottos. Jay's is ride forward, and mine is be good. So thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a nice chat.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay, peace.
Bye, brother.